Hi, I want to dedicate this video to something that a lot of pundits rant about on the internet regarding economic collapse and how we need to bring all these old industries back and that. And it's it, this is these are hard processes and concepts to kind of digest, but uh, the nostalgia for all these old industries that were here once, like loom and cloth industry, that's now completely gone to China or Vietnam or Mexico, or what else that we have lost. Well, we can't make any more T-shirts here. We won't make any money out of it because it's all done more cheaply in elsewhere. Let's talk about like electronic circuits and well, software. A lot of it is developed in Europe, but it's not here. And cell phones, they're manufactured all over the place, mostly in China, Vietnam, and Korea, and other stuff like well, we make more cars right now than we ever did in Detroit, so we can't sit and cry about that. But even though United States has lost a lot of manufacturing jobs and has lost complete industries that they're completely gone. You can't bring them back. Just they would be impossible, cost-wise and efficiency-wise. But the problem is that do we really want to bring these kinds of jobs and these kinds of industries back? I mean, the people who lament about this and want to reindustrialize, they really don't have a good conception of what these older industries were. I mean, I worked as a production worker. I worked in quality assurance. I have worked as technician and many different. I worked in design, CAD/CAM, and I don't feel a sense of nostalgia or loss. Having lost these kinds of jobs, they were not really competitively paying jobs, and the companies were constantly cutting back and trying to automate, and uh, they weren't particularly secure jobs, and the industries were not particularly long-living kind of industries. I think that we are missing some of the outlook on these industries, and we are only looking at them as through a filter or through a slit, through the eyes of like a well-paid production worker who has lost his or her job, and her wishing to bring all this back to make the same. But in reality, if somebody wanted to bring these industries back, he or she or the government or whatever institution that tried to do that, they will be in for tremendous financial losses. And not only that, many of these industrial processes in manufacturing, they are very much automated or very much in a more advanced form being done elsewhere, much cheaper than you can imagine. I just want to go over some of these processes, and once I go through them, you'll see that it would be nonsense to try to bring those kinds of jobs back. Let's, for example, look at the the most favored by employees of these processes would be like an old style car manufacturing as it was done by workers. May I add, they were very highly paid workers and unionized in Detroit. And every part of the manufacturing cycle was done by one skilled worker, and he or she might be able to do like one or two, like for example, the stamping and sanding, or the punching, or sheet metal forming, and assembly, and quality control. They were all like, they were portions of the manufacturing belt. Like you would go from one location to another, and highly paid technician would do that portion, and he or she would be part of the union and would get nicely paid for that. Some of them, they would get paid as much as like $30. But right now, the United States manufacturing more cars than ever before that Detroit ever did. And these cars that we are manufacturing now, even though they are not all made by fully American companies, they're made by like Toyota, a manufacturing plant in somewhere in the United States. They are mostly done with the, I don't know if you have seen these factories that make cars these days. This giant robot arm that sits on top of the car, and each arm is motion controlled by the computer, and does hundreds of things that those workers did. So the belt would go down. It would be pretty long if you had humans doing this, and now there's just this one arm. It does the sanding and the forming and punching and whatever you need to do to this car, even assembly. I've seen automated machinery that do quality control, and they check the dimensions of every single piece. So the reason that many employees that have lost their jobs in these industries, they feel nostalgic for the same jobs again, because they were unionized and they were paid well, and now those are gone, and these machines are doing the same thing. But the machines will just use electricity and lubricants, and a technician has to come and check up on them once in a while, or the initial investment. If you wanted to think like an employee or a worker, or the state of the industry that exists now and will be in the future, it just completely like contradicts what you want to do. So the industry has moved on and is manufacturing everything far cheaper and far better, and this will go on and become more automated. You don't know in the future what they'll come up with. They might have nano technologies doing many manufacturing, even in this very small scale. So is it really wise to hang on to this old style manufacturing and the employees when the industry has changed dramatically? You don't need a lot of these processes. It would be better to let them die off. Well, I could just mention one machine that has replaced like hundreds of processes, like a 3D printing. If you had to manufacture something that is a flat and looks like sheet metal, and you manufactured it by a 3D printer, the only thing you need is the designer and the machinery of 3D printing, and that's it. And if you wanted to do it by punching, stapling, and forming, and all annealing and all that stuff, You need at least 10, 15 different workers, or the same worker cycling back and forth. So I don't see how in any shape or form it would be make any kind of sense to go back and reindustrialize and bring all these dead horses back. I mean, wouldn't it be better to go with what the technology and the industry is doing now, and let them manufacture products at the cheapest possible price, and then the only thing that we need to do is change the benefits of this production, like if to make sure that the society becomes the ultimate owner of these processes, or these machines that were made. For example, if they manufacture the cars cheaper and sell it at retail price, there should be some higher forms of tax to take that money and redistribute it. I mean, technology makes it possible to have a socialist state, you know, and this if we allow capitalism to constantly amass all the profits of superior production methods, or we will be all in the street. I mean, at some point, you're just gonna have to stop and say, "Hey, this industry belongs to us, and we need to tax it. Sometimes tax it very heavily and use the proceeds." So basically, even though we humans are quite obsolete, and we are unsuitable for producing products and industrial processes, and these processes have gone ways that we cannot compete in that arena. But legally and socially, we are the owner and must be the beneficiary of these processes or these technologies. What I'm driving at is that we need to make ourselves legally the beneficiary of these industries, instead of fighting like hell to bring these dead dinosaurs back and get paid the way we used to get paid 30-40 years ago. I mean, it doesn't work. I just want to tell you some examples of how wealth that's generated technologically will seep into our lives, regardless of who actually does the production. I have 2-3 older PCs, and the problem these PCs have is they were made 15-20 years ago. I'm still using them. I had 4, and 2 of them died. The other 2 that I have, they still work. They're kind of functional. The sound system doesn't work very well. I guess there were some issues when they were manufacturing them. Anyhow, I would have to go buy these small USB soundboards that you plug into the USB port, and you then plug in your headphones and whatever, and the sound works then. Anyhow, I had 2, and one of them broke. So I remember that I bought them off of eBay, and I went back and I found this same USB sound card. Okay, this is a nice sound card. If I wanted to buy this sound card, say 15-20 years ago, a sound card would cost what, $20, $30, you know, and you couldn't really stick it into the USB. You had to open up the computer and put the sound card in there. Anyhow, this is not what I'm driving at. What I'm saying is that I went and found these sound cards, and they were selling them free shipping for 89 cents a piece. This is the entire sound card that's on a little chip, on a little printed circuit, and has the USB gizmo to plug it in. Okay, it was being shipped to me free of any kind of shipping. That's 89 cents. Okay, that's an example of industrial product that the industry is producing the way it wants and is not listening to us workers or governments or old capitalists, or just saying, hey, I'm gonna produce this the cheapest that I can, and I ship it from where I produced it. And what I'm concluding is that as a consumer, as a member of the society, I became the beneficiary of a hidden wealth. That's the wealth, that's the money that I saved, say $19 and 11 cents from the price of this sound card, because I allowed it to be manufactured and produced the way industry wanted to do it. And this is a hidden wealth that came to me. I mean, I buy a lot of other stuff off of eBay, and a lot of it is made in China or anywhere, Vietnam, and they are usually very superior products. So, even though we did diddly squat with the industrial planning, still that wealth came to me, and I could go on and buy other products and resell them and capture that profit. I mean, so bringing back these dead dinosaurs is just a complete loss to the government and to individuals, because we'll end up paying more for crappy stuff that somebody else could make better and cheaper. So what we need to do is find out what kind of jobs that we can make that will enrich us without taxing us unnecessarily. You cannot recreate the society and technology and jobs that existed here in the 60s and 50s, and you have to think for now. And I think that the jobs that we will have would be more like a designer or somebody who combines different technologies to provide a very refined service. I mean, if we cannot bring cloth and loom industries back, you could be a tailor. You could make the best Italian suits. So I mean, why should the governments and individuals fight back? I mean, or struggle to bring something that's dead, and it's not profitable anymore. It's not suitable for our society the way we have it now. The other concept would be that once a technology is developed, say for example we develop nanotechnology, we can build all these little machines that do all these gizmos for us. Okay, well, once a company or two companies or three companies they figure out how to do this, then it has two effects. First of all, once the company learns the technology or something is developed that's cheaper and better, they're not going to go back to the older processes. It's impossible, because it would be insane to just throw money away for something that I can do cheaper and better now. And the other effect would be that each, say for example the 3D printing, each new process like that, it replaces hundreds or sometimes thousands of jobs and processes that all the technologies were doing. For example, when cell phone technology is developed and the, companies have like cell phone towers here and there, so many in a city, like 10, 20 in a city, right? But then this technology completely makes useless and very expensive the wired telephone service, like, and we, in fact, we do have a lot of wired services, but nobody wants to use them anymore. Nobody wants to pay for them, and that's an old industry. It was very well functioning, and many people made a lot of money out of it. But so it's dead, or it's used in a more limited capacity, like as in if I want to send a fax, or I could do it wirelessly too, or I could take a picture or email it, but I might have to use a wired service and use the actual faxes hooked up to a wired telephone. Okay, but who says that I have to do things this way and use this old technology? Who says other people have to invest their hard-earned money to bring these wired services back? I mean, you follow what I'm saying? Is it makes redundant many other processes, and it's okay. There is no need to be nostalgic. One of the side effects of more advanced technology is, as time goes on, just like in the cell phone, all kinds of extra services are added, and the price for many services either collapses to zero or close to zero, and this savings and this added benefit is usually passed on to the consumer. So in 1960s and 1970s terms, I'm like a millionaire in the communication usage and value that I'm getting, because at today's technology, with the prices that I pay, but it's hundreds of times better than what it was in the past. I know you are following me. If you are watching this video, you're probably very educated, and you can follow these abstract concepts. We need to figure out better ways to pass on the society's wealth created through manufacturing or AI or nanotechnology or any other technology to the members of society. This undoubtedly will usher in socialism rather than another form of capitalism, because we need to distribute this wealth. The better way to do things would be to distribute this wealth and not reinvest in old social orders that are destructive, and not to reinvest in old industries that are really dead. Well, these ideas, they don't really resonate with politicians, because most of them are they are in a lag time, like they're 20 years behind of what's actually happening in industries. Many countries, they struggle with these problems, and it feels like a tremendous loss to them when entire industries move to other countries, or they collapse, or they're replaced, because many people come to depend on those wages and those forms of manufacturing. I think that if we had some type of basic income, and people knew that they have some kind of minimum that they will be able to get and to pay for basic stuff, they would themselves be the creator of new industries. Or usually, just like me, buy many products and services from other vendors when they manufacture it or make it very cheaply, and then I recombine them and resell them at a higher price to other members of society. And I mean that's a better way to go, and it's not a contrived kind of process. I think the people are the better arbiter of the value of services and products rather than some kind of superstructure that society built or companies or government built to provide the same kind of employment. Uh, these ideas are not new, and many people that study automation, they kind of know these processes and how we need to go about reshaping our future industrial platforms. Thank you very much for being in my YouTube channel. Please feel free to leave your comments.